Colombe, we are live.
Just to, is it working? Just to say it again, we're going live on social media, so if anyone doesn't want to appear, go on the left. Perfect. So everyone, thank you for coming once more. This is on, it's working. Before starting, we like to start with a little chant so that we are sure that we are head across the road. So are you ready?
Yes!
Go! What do we want? Free Hong Kong! What do we want? Free Hong Kong! What do we want? Free Hong Kong! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Free Hong Kong! When do we want it? Now! Yes! Okay, that's good. That's a good one. We're gonna get a bit louder as we go today.
Woo!
And so just before leaving the mic to Ben here, I just wanted to let you know that those protests are happening all over the world today. We had some in Tokyo, we had some in San Francisco, in Toronto, we are having some in Milan, in Berlin. All around the world, people are uniting to make sure that world leaders know that we stand with Hong Kong and that we will not stop until Hong Kong is free. So I thank you for coming every week in front of the Chinese embassy. I've seen your faces for many, many weeks now, and it's amazing to know that we will keep on going for many months, under the rain, under the heat, nothing will stop us. On those words, you came here to listen to Ben as well, so I'll leave him the megaphone. But you all know him, he's the founder of Hong Kong Watch, and he's been working on the topic for a very, very long time.
Yeah, yeah.
Woo!
Thank you so much. It's firstly a privilege to have been invited to be with you today, although of course it's also a great sadness because it should not be necessary. But since it is necessary, I want to pay tribute to Now for organizing every week Fridays for Freedom, and to say that I'm really glad to be with you today and to stand with you. This is the first time I've ever spoken through a mask, and of course I'm only doing so because of the public health reasons. I have no reason to disguise my face, but we all know that so many people from Hong Kong and in Hong Kong do have to disguise their identity for their own safety. So much has happened in recent weeks. Only 2 days ago, 12 people from Hong Kong, in an act of desperation that speaks volumes about the breakdown in trust in the legal system, in the government, in police in Hong Kong. 12 people got on a very tiny boat to try to escape to freedom. In all the years that I've worked on human rights, I've worked on other situations. I've worked on Burma or Myanmar, and I've seen terrible images from Burma of the Rohingya people fleeing on very flimsy boats. I never imagined that I would see the day when people from Hong Kong do the same. But of course the tragedy is that those waters are among the most heavily patrolled waters in the world, and those 12 young people were fairly quickly stopped by the Chinese maritime police and are now being detained in mainland China. I want to say first of all that I appeal to the international community and to the Chinese regime to release those young people and return them to Hong Kong. The conditions, I don't know what conditions they're held in, but I can only imagine how much worse it is in a Chinese jail, and they should not be there. They should be safely returned to Hong Kong. And so we must cry out to the world for them and demand their safe release. But it is a sign of how desperate the situation is that those people would take such a risk on such a small boat in such dangerous waters, and that speaks volumes to the world, and the world must hear that. I want to also express my solidarity with all those who have been arrested in recent weeks under this terrible draconian new national security law that completely decimates Hong Kong's freedoms and autonomy. Those who are well known, like Jimmy Lai, and Agnes Chow, and those who may be less well known to the world, but who've been arrested in recent weeks and even in the last few days. And the turning on its head of the truth is one of the most shocking developments that we've seen. The fact that this week, I believe 16 people, including 2 pro-democracy legislators, who were victims of a mob attack at Yunlong last year, have themselves now been arrested, whilst the pro-Beijing thugs who were the perpetrators of that violence are still roaming free and have never been called to account. Just for those of you who don't know so much about my own background, I was asked perhaps to say something a little bit more personal. And so I want to say that I consider myself a Hong Konger. I don't look like one, and I haven't lived in Hong Kong for some time. But I think actually I'm a Hong Konger for 2 reasons. Firstly, I think we are all Hong Kongers if we believe in the values of freedom, because
Yes.
Hong Kong is the new front line in the fight for freedom. But for me, there's an extra reason why I consider myself a Hong Konger, and that is that I began my working life in Hong Kong. I lived in Hong Kong for the first 5 years after the handover, from 1997 to 2002. And at that time, I really believed that the idea of one country, 2 systems could work. I saw it working. The years that I lived there, Hong Kong had the basic freedoms that it was promised. But over the last few years, the last 10 years, especially the last 5 or 6 years, those freedoms have increasingly been eroded and now being blatantly destroyed. And so the world must speak out against this assault on freedom, this flagrant violation of an international treaty, the Sino-British Joint Declaration, that still is valid until 2047. Governments around the world have taken some steps, and I welcome those steps. I welcome the new offer from the British government to British national overseas passport holders. I welcome the suspension of the extradition agreement. I welcome the targeted sanctions that the United States has introduced. I welcome other measures that other governments have taken. But those measures are nowhere near enough in response to the gravity of the situation. And so we must press upon the British government and other governments the need to do more. We need targeted Magnitsky-style sanctions from the British government and other governments. Sanctions that target not the people of China, not the people of Hong Kong, but the officials in the Chinese and Hong Kong governments and police who are responsible for serious human rights violations
Yes.
and for breaches of an international agreement. We need the Hong Kong police to be held accountable for the terrible brutality that we've seen consistently day after day over the last 12 months. We need British expatriate police serving in the Hong Kong police force who are responsible for, or at least complicit with, those violations to be held accountable. And I know there is an initiative undertaken by private citizens to do that, but we need greater support for that. We need action at the United Nations. I've been campaigning for the establishment of a UN Special Rapporteur and a UN Special Envoy on Hong Kong to give an international focus to the situation in Hong Kong at the UN. And we need a global lifeboat rescue scheme. We need countries, like-minded countries, that are willing to help non-BNO Hong Kongers who are in grave danger and who need a place of sanctuary to coordinate with each other so that that lifeline can be provided. I think the last thing I will just say is that some of you may have followed this week the visit of the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi to Europe. And I think we should take pride in the fact that Wang Yi has not had the smooth visit that he would have wished for. Myself and my colleagues in Hong Kong Watch, my friends in IPAC, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, worked together with others, with Hong Kongers in different parts of Europe, and with other groups, with Uyghurs, with Tibetans, with Falun Gong, to make sure that European governments that were meeting Wang Yi did not stay silent on these questions. In Rome on Tuesday, just a few hours before Wang Yi met the Italian foreign minister, Nathan Law got there before him and delivered a letter to the Italian foreign ministry urging the foreign minister to raise Hong Kong. And the Italian foreign minister did. And I'm not sure that he would have done if we hadn't organized that effort. And then in the Netherlands, a Dutch member of parliament invited Wang Yi to the Dutch parliament. Of course, Wang Yi refused the invitation. And then the Dutch parliamentarian held a press conference and highlighted the appalling human rights situation in China, including Hong Kong. And then in Norway, we've seen Wang Yi facing protests and the Norwegian government raising these issues. And I haven't seen what's happened in Paris today, but I know he's been meeting, he was due to meet President Macron in Paris. Nathan Law sent a letter late last night to President Macron urging him to speak out on Hong Kong, and I hope that he has done so. And I hope that we will see meaningful action in Berlin in the next few days to give Wang Yi a really strong send-off at the end of his European tour, that he will go away with the message that Europe is waking up, Europe is standing up, and Europe is speaking out. And so we must continue to do everything we can to press governments around Europe to do this. We must make sure that it is no longer business as usual, and we must work for the whole international community. Because it's a fight not just for Hong Kongers, not just for the rights of Hong Kong people. This is actually a fight for freedom for all of us, and a fight for freedom against tyranny, and a fight that we will continue to fight until we win. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I actually have a question for Benedict. Can maybe with the megaphone?
You want to ask it with the megaphone?
No, I can stay next to the social media because actually we have hundreds of people right now following us, and I think that many of them are actually asking themselves what can they do to really support the struggle. And I mean, you gave a lot of examples of very meaningful actions from leading activists, organizations. But what can a normal citizen do to help Hong Kong? Because I think this is what our followers would like to know.
I think that's a really important question, and there are a few very straightforward things that everyone can do. If citizens live at least in a representative democracy, then you can definitely engage your elected representatives, your members of parliament, to speak out on Hong Kong. And in my experience, there are some members of parliament who will do this by themselves because they have the beliefs, they have the conviction, and they have the courage. But there are many members of parliament, not necessarily because they lack conviction, but because they have many other demands on their time, who might not take up this issue by themselves, but who will do so if they hear from their constituents, from their electors. And so I would encourage people all over Europe, all over the world, in representative democracies to write to your elected representatives about the situation in Hong Kong, to urge them to speak out in their legislatures, to push for some of the measures that I've outlined, sanctions and the other recommendations. The other thing people can do is to join protests like this all over the world. To join Friday for Freedom wherever it's taking place. And people, if they want to get more involved, can contact Now or can contact Hong Kong Watch or other organizations working on this and get more involved. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Woo!
So before we take pictures, I propose that we scream a bit louder this time.
All right.
Are you
Yes.
up for it?
Yeah.
I want the loudest scream you've had in a very, very long time. So what do we want?
Free Hong Kong!
What do we want?
Free Hong Kong!
When do we want it?
Now!
Sorry.
what Ben said is exactly what we're trying to do with Hong Kong Watch, EPAC now, every single week. Here, the reason for which we're organizing those protests is not just to annoy the Chinese embassy in front, although that's a really good side of it, but it's also because we're starting to mobilize people across the world so that then we can lobby our countries that are democratic into taking coordinated sanctions and responses to what is happening, not only in Hong Kong, but towards the Uyghurs, towards Tibet. We want to form a D10, which is an alliance of the 10 biggest democracies that have a big economic impact. We believe that no country alone can make China change its behavior towards Hong Kong, Tibet, the Uyghurs, and so on, but that if enough countries start imposing coordinated sanctions, and as Ben said, not on Chinese citizens, not on Hong Kong citizens, but on the officials that are committing the human rights violations, then this might change. So we will continue to organize those protests for a very long time, but the people that are mobilizing and organizing across the world will also start to lobby their representatives, their parliaments, and the executive branch, just like Nathan Lowe is doing with President Macron, for example, to make sure that they answer to what is happening in Hong Kong. So to conclude, I also urge you to take action and to make sure that you contact your government, that you attend protests, and that you organize. Lauren? And you take over this iPad.
We apply for a permit. Since we are law-abiding citizens, we always apply for permit, but we always have to explain why we are here. But we're going to be here for a long time, right? So every week we apply for the permit, every week we are here until Hong Kong is free. That's the most important thing. And there is no way that someone can send us away. And actually, we can't even cross the street, because once we tried, and we got called the police on. And so it's really important that more people come to this protest, because it's clear that China, even in democratic and free countries, try to apply pressures on activists, on political activists, to shut them up. And we will not back off, we will not shut up, we will not back down. You'll find us here until Hong Kong is free. And this is a message that we send not only from London, not only from Europe, but from the world as a whole. Because we know that if we bind together, if we support each other, we can make it. They can't stop us. And so it's really important that wherever you're following us from online, and wherever you live into, you come on Friday in front of your consulate, in front of your embassy, wherever you can protest, in the smallest town on this planet, but you go there and you show to your elected representative that you care about Hong Kong, you care about what's going on with the Uyghurs, you care about what's going on with Tibet, and you care. Because if not, in 10 years, the freedoms that we have might be eroded. The freedom that our grandfathers and fathers won might be eroded. And it is extremely important to understand there is no place for complacency here. There is no place to relax. Whatever is happening in Hong Kong was unthinkable 10 years ago. And because the international community did not act, now we are experiencing the destruction of one of the most beautiful democracies that Asia had created. And we need to fight back. And I really hope that people around us and all the people that show up every Friday to fight for Hong Kong will not back down until we actually win. And I can see it in the eyes of the activists and protesters that I met all over the world. There is a burning passion, there is a fire that we can ignite and that we can push until Hong Kong is free. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for sacrificing your free time and putting also your privacy at risk and showing up every Friday for this very important cause. Thank you. Together, we will free Hong Kong. Let's do this, guys.
Woo!